Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So finally we do have Morbius and Werewolf by Night balance update, and for those of you who are in a rush and just want to get into the gist of things, basically neither Morbius or Werewolf by Night is getting changed and we are getting a new buff, which is Mr. Sinister. Now before I break down what Kebab has said about the champions in a bit more detail, I definitely want to remind you guys that I am hosting a Battlegrounds Championship Series. It's going to be 5 tournaments with a total of a whooping massive prize pool for anybody that is a supporter of the channel via Arizona. This is going to be starting season 16. There are going to be 5 tournaments in total. Each tournament has a minimum of $500 total cash prize. The final tournament is going to offer you guys a brand new iPhone 15 or a cash equivalent based in which country you live in, as well as also random gifts being given out just for taking part as well. The link to all of that and joining Arizona Members Club is going to be in the video description and in the pinned comment. So let's get into the nitty-bitty gritty things of Morbius and Werewolf by Night. So the balance team here again with an update to the latest round of champions up for review. Morbius, Werewolf by Night. October's first addition to the hashtag Legion Monsters was Morbius, designed to be a high damage dealer that revisited classic science utilities such as power and region control. We were pleased to see him immediately make an impact as a strong attacker, especially during the sugar pill and decay meta. Defensively, Morbius can catch attackers off guard with his unblockable medium dash, but we're seeing him effectively countered by a healthy spread of champions. Overall, we are happy with how Morbius landed, and he will be staying as is. Now, here again, for me personally, I don't think I am that happy with where Morbius landed, because unfortunately my predictions for him came entirely true. He received a lot of hype specifically because of decay tactic and sugar pill meta, where he was significantly more potent than he otherwise would be, enabling him to counter more and different champions. And since then, he basically has fallen off the ground. For the last 2 or 3 months, we do not see Morbius used in any meaningful capacity pretty much anywhere, and that is what I kind of expected, which is effectively a reverse of Werewolf by Night, where Werewolf was kind of countered due to the tactics much easier than he otherwise would be initially, and then he kind of blossomed with some of the latter metas. With Morbius, ultimately, like my own personal opinion, Morbius, he's a mediocre or somewhat under average champion currently in the game, with all the new powerful additions, arriving, such as Bullseye, Onslaught, Maestro, and significant range of more impactful champions, to the point where I would even say that, currently Red Skull has much better game presence as one of the older buffs that we received recently than Morbius does. Ultimately, I don't think he's abysmally bad. It's, I suppose, fine that he's staying as is, but if anything, and I would have to lean that he's definitely champion on the side of tune-up, because he does have a major problem where all of his damage is effectively placed in the level 2 with moderate amount of utility. He's not the craziest science, most versatile champion either, and science class is just very strong, and there's tons of competitions, and obviously not every champion in that class is going to get any game time or a meaningful resource investment. And Morbius kind of falls in similar category to many other solid science champions that are just not quite good enough to make to justify using catalysts on them compared to your Hulks, Titanias, Scorpions, Human Torches, and whatnot. So unfortunately, I think that means that the champion that we all got from the triple double track thing is not gonna be wildly present in the future of the game, aside from perhaps very specific tasks and metas. But, I suppose that's fine. So now we have Werewolf by Night. And Werewolf by Night, the second spooky champion from October in Werewolf by Night, came howling into the Battle Realm as a threatening defender with strong attacker potential in the right matchups or meta. Looking at you, Polka Dot Power plus Power Shield meta. As a defender, we're seeing players effectively counter him, his threats with ability power rate control, as well as countering the Rupture debuffs directly. As an attacker, Werewolf by Night had a few Cosmic Defenders as targets in the God Butcher, Adam Warlock, and Hulkling. We're happy with his effectiveness in those matchups. No changes incoming for Werewolf. And this text kind of leads me to believe that perhaps Kabam themselves don't necessarily understand the use of champions, because I can promise and guarantee you that vast majority of the Werewolf by Night use is coming from his offensive capabilities. As a defender, he's not that hard to control unless the AI completely, stops you in your tracks, or there is a very bad matchup, or some nodes making him significantly harder to fight. Ultimately, as a defender, he'll be subpar defender. He's decent. He's quite chunky. There are some things to keep in mind, but he's not the greatest. And that's coming from somebody who has a 6-star and 5 ascended Werewolf by Night. He can get you some dubs, but he's definitely not somebody you draft as in like from he's not a Domino, he's not a Sasquatch, he's not one of those champions where you draft and you already plan that he's going to definitely go on defense. He often is much more valuable as an attacker, and as such, he has far more matchups than mentioned here, and far more relevant matchups that he can do, and he can do well. Now, ultimately, his effectiveness will, again, vastly differentiate in between the metas. He's not as fast as some would like, but again, since he does have his Valkyrie-esque playstyle where you get a ton of power from your Howling and then just inflict ruptures through block to your opponent, I'm fine with him being left as he is. I obviously am. We all know that in some of the metas he's going to be OP, in other metas he's going to be all right, which is, I think, much better place where Morbius overall stands for, because again, he does have better matchup potential as well as better defensive potential than Morbius with his significantly larger health pool. So them not changing Werewolf by Night, I am happy with, I am satisfied with that. But reading what's written about him, again, makes me think that they do not necessarily understand the champion as well as they perhaps should, because they kind of describe him completely other way around, where he's a defensive threat with some good offensive matchups. Kind of other way around. He's an offensive threat with many decent and good matchups, and defensively, he's all right. He can stop some champions. Right, so what's next? With both of these champions staying as is, we're going to be releasing an update to Mr. Sinister. This update will be focused on leaning into his heavy debuff pause loop and giving him more power as an attacker. Mr. Sinister's timeline will look like March and April beta builds. May is going to be the release. So let's take a look at Mr. Sinister. And I'm actually quite happy with this champion getting a buff, because I think he's in a similar place as a Red Skull, where there are interesting things about him that are interesting and unique abilities. I do think that his SIG ability needs to be completely reworked. It just doesn't work at all. And there are a few other bits, obviously. The big problem is he just isn't good enough. Like, his damage is not there, and that's about it. Currently, the only relevance Mr. Sinister really has ever gotten is as a defender in some specific metas, like Crit Me With Your Best Shot or a few others. At the same time, there is a lot of unique things in his kit that we haven't seen since, or are still very rare in the game. For instance, Mr. Sinister's Telepathic Mastery renders him immune to Taunt and Reverse Controls. Those are fairly rare immunities. Mr. Sinister's powers allow him to block unblockable special attacks flat out, which is becoming more and more useful and relevant as the time goes by, because we get many more unblockable special attacks and nodes. And there are plenty of other things in his kit that are quite awesome, like his access to Concussion and Power Leech, which is pretty unique as well. Then, he gains his Precision and Cruelty, which frankly are just not potent enough or last long enough for you to utilize them properly. Has access to Degen, again, access to Concussion. Lots of cool stuff here, for sure. His level 1 throwing your own personal dot effects at the opponent is something that's very, very unique in the game. And this is the type of buff that I am quite excited for. Now, obviously, again, there are many far worse champions in the game than Mr. Sinister, but ultimately, him being a mutant and mutant class needing more help, I think is a very healthy and solid pick. Yeah, no, I think he's quirky, I think he's cool, and I think they can make him great if they do a proper job at it. So, hold our thumbs that Mr. Sinister is in fact going to become, a relevant champion in the game. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about Morbius, about Werewolf by Night, and Mr. Sinister. And I'm gonna catch you guys later. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about